What's going on, everyone? Kyle Solkar here, and today we're going to be going over my quick model on how to own a car for free. Now, this isn't rocket science, but this is something that I've proven to work time and time again. I've definitely lost my fair share of money on cars, but I've also either made money or broken even on cars, and all of it is definitely very respectable. But at the same time, this is something that's great for somebody who's trying to save as much money as possible and doesn't necessarily need to be driving a brand new car, but they want to be driving something that they know they won't lose money on, and they very much so value whatever money they have saved and want to retain it, or maybe to potentially make a little bit of money on it. So that being said, for this example, I used a car that's worth about $8,000, specifically the 2009 328i. Now, this is just kind of out of the random because it was about 10 years old, and I say that it takes about 10 years for a car to fully depreciate, with the depreciation curve looking something like this. If you buy a car up here, there's definitely some benefits to it. You don't have to worry about a lot of things. They have warranties, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As you see in my M3 video, I have a 2018 M3 I bought brand new. It was the first car I ever bought brand new. And there's definitely an awesome thing about owning a car brand new. But there's also things, I have a 2002 M3 that is very awesome for a different reason, because I'll be able to drive the vehicle and own it for practically free. And with that being said, that shows you that that car is about 17 years old, but we're going to be using a 2009 for this example. Either way, cars around this time, after about 10 years, all kind of about fiddle out when it comes to any really consumer car. So a BMW, any German car, I'm sure an Audi A4, stuff like that. All those kind of cars, even if it's a Honda, it's a similar basis. So you go 10 years back and you have this good wiggle room to play with, and you have a very low entry point, and you only have to focus on a few things in order to make sure that you are making profit, or breaking even, which is the most important thing in this whole lesson. So say you've got this area of time where you want to buy a car at the bottom of the curve, because a car loses most of its money in the first 5 years, and then after 5 years it loses a pretty substantial amount of money, and then the rest here. So like I said, nothing wrong in buying a car that's brand new, but we're going to go over, for the people who want to buy cars used, what you should be doing. So with that being said, $8,000. I said that because that's about the price that you could see a car with about 90,000 miles going for. So say about 10,000 a year or so. So you see a car 80, 90, 100,000 miles going for about $8,000. You're going to be looking on sites like Ad Hunter, which is like all of Craigslist, which can get a little bit overpopulated at times and hard to sift through. But number one would be Craigslist in your city, AutoTrader, Cars.com, potentially eBay, CarGurus, etc. You're going to be looking for vehicles that are listed either at a dealership or private party. The benefits of private party sales would be the fact that you don't have to pay sales tax, as much sales tax, at least. You have to pay, registration fees, etc. And some of the benefits of a dealership is that it's going to be easier to get you financing if that's what you are looking to do. And the dealerships will be able to take in your car as trade and give you a trade-in credit, so you don't have to pay as many taxes as far as sales tax goes. So if you have a vehicle and you want to buy it from a dealership, some benefits would be that. And then on top of that, a dealership, you have more leverage as far as, getting a car that doesn't have any issues necessarily, and a car that can be fully inspected, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So playing the private party game is definitely a game of chance and definitely has more risk. And there's definitely positives and negatives to both sides, but you can't really go wrong with either, as long as you're, buying a car outside of its depreciation curve for this example. So with that being said, you want to make sure that you analyze your fair market value, and you're looking at the rest of the market when it comes to buying your car. And say the fair market value around, and you don't have to use Kelley Blue Book for any of these examples. A lot of the times they're very either grossly underestimated or very overestimated, but just look at the general perspectives of cars with that range of miles and within about a 20,000 mile buffer, say 70,000 or 20,000 less or 20,000 more than what you're looking for, and say that turns out to be $8,000. Now, with that being said, what I really want you to do here is to be able to negotiate your difference. Either you negotiate your profit or negotiate your just ability to stay in the black, and that essentially means to be profitable or to own the car for free. So what are you going to do exactly to do that? And you're going to offer the person around 20% of whatever value it is that they're asking for, as long as you can justify it. Now, this isn't always the case. A car sometimes can be perfectly detailed, perfectly taken care of, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe that's sometime when you offer about 10% of their asking price, because you don't have to put as much money into the car or as much work. But my kind of rule of thumb is to offer about 15, 20%, and it'll get you about a number around $6,200. That would be kind of a good offer if you're able to find flaws with the car and kind of just negotiate with somebody. Especially having cash is definitely a very big thing. You don't have to follow this model. It just leaves a lot of leeway and kind of wiggle room, and you'll see that a little bit further down. So you offer 6,200. The person might say, no way, I'll give you the car for $7,000. They'll come down 1,000. And that's when you say, you know, how about I meet you at $6,500 or 6,800 bucks. And that kind of gives you, and like I said, a nice amount of wiggle room. Car, you know, 70, 90,000 miles has kind of a good amount of time and mileage for the car to depreciate, but not have any diminishing, you know, resale potential. After, you know, about 150,000 miles, or even before, after 100,000 miles, you start to lose potential buyers when it comes to reselling the vehicle. So that being said, I like to stick to a term of ownership of about 6 to 18 months. Now, if you sell a car before 6 months, you're essentially flipping the car, which there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but you're spending a lot of time on this whole process, and that kind of eliminates the ability to lose own a car for free. That's more of just buying and selling a vehicle. So I would say to own a car and actually enjoy it and use it for its purposes and be able to, drive it for free, own it for about 6 to 18 months. Anything past 18 months can kind of be, you're putting too many miles on it. The car's getting depreciating even a little bit more, and you might start to see negative returns. So that being said, 6 to 18 months ownership. And I would say to leave about a $500 budget. That's actually very low. That's kind of covering, things like maybe you have to replace some tires, or you have to replace, little things like seals, etc. I would actually say this is probably about $500 to $1,000. Let's leave that just as kind of like a leeway. I would say you're guaranteed to spend about $500 in little things like detailing the car, whatever it might be. But you can definitely get away with not spending this at all. I like to make a relatively conservative estimate. This is very broad, by the way, so this isn't like a specific case study. We could go over a case study, but I want to make it as easily graspable and be able to insert cars into this model rather than thinking that it only has happened one time before, because it happens all the time. So that being said, going down here, say you're going to be about $7,000 into the vehicle. $6,500 you get the car for, you pay total $7,000 for the car, and you own the car. Say, this isn't really relevant right now, but say you own the car for the full term. We'll use those in these calculations over here. When you get when you come to that final realization that you've owned the car for $7,000, I would say now you're going to want to add about 20% of value to your asking price. So you can start at about $9,000 to $10,000 more, or $9,000 to $10,000 as your price that you're listing it for, and that will give you a good amount of room to wiggle with to make sure that you are either making profit or breaking even. Now, like I said, number one thing is breaking even, because you're making profit by default by owning and using a car. It's just something that's never realized. So with that being said, something you want to focus on, number one, is pics, which means pictures. You're going to make sure that your pictures are top notch and as best as possible. Now, I'm going to be releasing a lot of videos on how to make your pictures better, what to use, et cetera, in the whole marketing field. And you can use these cross-referenced, but there are videos on my YouTube channel about automotive photography. There's our videos on YouTube about it, and then on top of that, you can either hire somebody that locally for $50 or $100, or maybe they'll do it for a free lunch, or you can just do your best effort with your iPhone, which is totally okay too. But make sure it's in a presentable location. Make sure the car is clean. Make sure there's no LaCroix in the cup holder, or whatever it is that you drink, and then. Next thing you're going to want to do is work on the service history. You're going to want to get all the documents for the vehicle so that the person who you're buying it from can be rest assured that you have all the documents. Because if you never get these, it's like they never even exist. And if the next person finds them, it's essentially like, you bought the car, or you sold them the car, and they discover that these things after they made their price decision, which is pointless to you at that point because you're losing technical value there because they didn't know about these thousands of dollars potentially that the car had at work to it. So make sure you gather all of your service history and you look into that before posting the car or negotiating with people in general. So you're going to list it on eBay, Craigslist, Auto Trader, Car Gurus, Cars.com, etc. And I always do, it's kind of a rule of thumb for me, don't do it all at the same time and sit down for 30 minutes to an hour that it takes to post the vehicle everywhere. You're going to want to settle on that price. So you settle on $9,000, and you want to post that vehicle for $9,000 absolutely everywhere. Don't post it for different prices either, all over the place. Make it consistent, make the pictures consistent, pay a little bit of money to post on eBay or Cars.com or AutoTrader, whatever, charges you a little bit. You don't have to get the best packages, but get a package so where, you can at least leave it running for a little bit of time, invest a little bit of money up front, and then, you'll leave about $2,000 in positive, equity in the deal, which is very, very cool. And this gives you the ability to avoid, worst case scenario, if there's a catastrophic failure in between your ownership and your, your investment, your kind of service or, incident investment goes up, you have $2,000 in leeway, or you have $2,000 in profit if nothing happens with the car, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is kind of like a good buffer to use in kind of the general ball of doing this. And with that, kind of brings us back to our initial calculation. If you're buying a car, say 328i, it's going to cost about $50,000 brand new. And over the course of, say 10 years, the car is going to lose about, $42,000 in value based on this model. So over 10, somebody owns this for 10 years. So that means that you're spending about $4,000 a year to own the vehicle, which isn't actually that bad considering, you can probably use this as a business write-off, your tax write-off, et cetera, et cetera. But a lot of people, can't get approved on $50,000 a year, don't have a reason to write off that money, or don't care to have a new car smell. They just want to, be in a car cash and then would be out of the car cash and never want to worry about anything else, which I understand all forms of why you'd want to do all of those things, and there's a time and place for everything. This is just hitting on one of those specific times. So it's about $4,000 a year, and say we follow this 18-month model, that will leave us with about 1.5 years, and that's saving about $6,000. You're essentially saving $6,000 to own this vehicle, and on top of that, you add this $2,000 in profit, you're almost being paid $8,000, or you're, having a surplus of $8,000 if all goes well, all because you bought this car correctly. So, you're really going to want to aim for, getting as close to your purchase price as possible, or at least being able to negotiate. Even if you sold the car, in the first couple days for $7,000, you are still in good shape and still technically up $6,000. Now, I understand the car is going to have, wear on it or whatever it might be. It's going to have, 70, 80, 90,000 miles. And it is a used German car or whatever you might want to say. It doesn't have a warranty, etc. But as long as you play your cards right, use, and, you make friends with people at the dealer, or you use independent shops or whatever it might be, whatever floats your boat, wherever you want to bring it. You have enough money in this model to kind of absorb any of the costs. Now, if you want to own a car longer than this, and you think that your business, whatever you do in your business, is indirectly worth more money than it is to spend the time on this, then by all means do it. I'm not saying that everyone should do this, but maybe if you're 16 years old and you just saved up your first amount of money and you want to, and it doesn't really have to be a BMW, you might think that that's ridiculous that I'm using it as an investment standpoint, but it's very possible to do this. I've definitely done it before, and it's definitely fair on both ends. You just have to be able to purchase something that has maybe some downfalls at the beginning, whether it's advertised poorly, or it's not in the right spot, or they don't have good pictures, or they don't have all the story, you don't know about the Carfax, the history, or it's dirty, it's dented, etc. And you could put kind of your love and care into it and create a better package for the end consumer while also driving it in the beginning. So this is a very good value triangle, I'd like to say, of helping both people on both parties. They want the money at the beginning, you want the vehicle, and at the end of the day, the person wants a vehicle, and they want a vehicle that's better marketed, that they can trust, with better service history, and then they can drive and with peace of mind. So with that being said, guys, thank you so very much for watching. My name is Kyle Solkar. I'm an automotive enthusiast, digital marketing connoisseur, and I'm working on a lot of great stuff that you guys can use to make more money or save more money, and I really want to provide as much value as possible. So with that being said, like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't. Leaving a comment below would be the absolute greatest thing in the world. Tell me what you liked about this video, tell me what you didn't like, whatever it might be, or what you want to see next. I bought and sold a lot of cars in my day, and I really do enjoy it. So if there's any questions you have, drop them below. Like always, subscribe if you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video.